welcome to They Talk Funny. I am Paul Ash. Joining me all the way from Dallas, Texas, is Jordan Black. And if that doesn't seem far to you, well, I'm in Montreal, so that makes it an international show. Welcome, Jordan, to They Talk Funny, where we get to talk about comedy, writing, and life during COVID and all that stuff. And I'm chilly up here. I'm sorry. I've got the thick sweater and everything.
See, I expected to see you in like a fur trapper's hat.
For
That's what I was. Yeah.
I probably should start wearing that now that I'm balding, but it used to be thick hair. I've not had my hair cut since February.
Wow.
We are on a serious lockdown here in Montreal. Yeah, it's glad to hear. I hear comedy is still alive in Dallas.
Yes, it is. Still shows happening. I think like some of the clubs are doing a little social distancing stuff. One club does it on their roof now and does it like outdoors. So,
which
yeah.
It's a little bit chilly there.
Yeah, they may start to move it indoors as it gets chillier.
Understood. Okay. Now we met via a comedy writing forum on Facebook.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I asked you on because you're doing a series of videos called "Playing to the Back of the Room."
Mm-hmm. Playing to the back. Yeah.
Playing to the back.
Right.
Just we're Canadians. We use extra words.
Yeah, it's all right.
We put a U in color. Did you know that? Yeah. There's a
Right. Yeah, you do.
and neighbor.
I forget how different we are. You're like, it's -9 up here. And I was like, what? You're like Celsius. I was like, oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. It's just a little below 16 degrees. It's oh man, that's so scary. There's we have these differences. Now, how long have you been doing comedy? You're a young man at this point in time. You're also a young father, but you're a young man. What age were you when you first started performing stand-up?
I first started performing stand-up whenever I was 16. I had shown an interest in it through my later middle school years. I think in 6th grade I learned how to cuss, and I learned that I was pretty funny cussing. There was like a guy at my lunch table, Jacob Ramirez, who I still to this day credit for showing me that I was funny. And then as I started watching stand up on HBO and stuff, I started going oh, okay. That's a thing that people just do. They just get up and tell jokes on stage. And then in 8th grade, I saw the movie, Funny People with Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen,
right,
and realized they just write stuff down in a notebook. And you don't have to be famous to be a stand-up comedian. It's not like you get famous as an actor and then you become a stand-up comedian afterwards. There's small local stand-up scenes all around the country. So, and then in sophomore year of high school, my dad, he actually was working at a bar as a bartender, and a guy came up to him and was like, hey, I'm hosting a comedy show here. Do you know any local comics that would want to open for me? And so my dad responded to this guy yeah, my kid wants to try stand-up comedy. And the guy was like, all right, sure. Can you do 11 minutes of comedy? And my dad was like, probably. And so he asked me, and I was like, yeah, I can totally do 11 minutes of comedy. And come to find out, I had no idea how long that was on stage. Yeah, this guy, he had no idea what he was doing. He was like a promoter, and he was just, I want to do a comedy night. And yeah, he bombed. He bombed pretty bad.
He bombed too. Okay. Was there anyone good on that show?
Honestly,
like a Oda Towner or
no? It was my first time doing stand-up ever. There was a band to start it off, and then I did 11 minutes, and then this guy went up after me and was supposed to do 40 minutes. And this guy, it was also probably his first time doing stand-up. Not even kidding. His name was Nacho, like a chip with cheese on it. Nacho.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he did awful. I think I did pretty well, especially for a first time. I kind of stacked the audience a little bit. My dad worked at the bar. People knew me. So.
Have my kid, I'll get you a drink. Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay. That is now. Some people have kind of figured out that they can ask their questions. Mazel Tov Cocktail is asking if it was Nacho Libre. That's a fictional character, but and Nacho ended up becoming a much more sinister name thanks to Better Call Saul.
Right.
All right. Melissa Littleton is saying he told his dad's boss off on stage. What did he?
Yeah, that's a funny story. That's my mom, by the way. Hi, mom. Thanks for watching. I've got very, very supportive parents.
That's
Uh,
that's great. My parents still think I work in a bank.
really?
There's yeah, no, not really.
Oh gosh, that's great. Now, yeah, I told my dad's boss off at a show that was at that bar. Basically, it wasn't that first show. It was like a year later. I was gonna do like an hour, which I thought I was capable of doing at a year into comedy. Like I said, this was the summer before my senior year of high school.
You could probably fill the time.
Right.
Just the quality would be yeah.
Exactly. Um,
But
yeah, so I
kudos on
was
the
getting ready
guts.
for that show,
Hmm.
and like this drunk woman came up and started being like, "Give me the microphone,"
Right.
and I was like, it's like I just looked at her. I was like, "This is a rhetorical performance, lady. So you might want to like just go and we'll talk after the show, or you can sign up. I don't know, do a show of your own." And then my dad was just like in awe, like he was just like, and I come to find out it was his boss. And this, she like turned around, and was all pissy about it. It was pretty funny.
It's you've never had anyone swing at you on stage?
No, never swing. I think audience members rarely hate me. Other
Yeah.
comics hate me. That's a thing. Other comics definitely hate me. I've almost gotten in fights with people like outside of comedy clubs about comedy, but never like an audience member. If there's ever a heckler or somebody who's like being a little too much, I think I handle it pretty well, like respectfully.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the rule of threes when it comes to hecklers.
Yeah.
Now you've obviously watching your playing to the back. You've obviously have studied comedy. Is it just your own experiences, or have you read up on or followed any books that you would recommend people read who are interested in comedy or comedy writing?
Well, I don't exactly read, Paul. Uh, I
Don't do Texas like that. Uh,
I'm not
if
doing
this is
text like
Canada here, you could say no. My Smith and Weston reads. That's
man, no, I really haven't read any books on comedy. It is a lot of personal experience, and it's a lot of BS, really. I am a firm believer in just kind of like start talking about something that you are passionate about, and eventually, like, my brain would kind of just figure stuff out. So that was stuff I would do like at comedy shows and open mics and stuff like that. I would just kind of, I think this about comedy theory, and then just start exploring it in mid sentence, and then eventually come out with something. I'm like, that was pretty good.
now you say you don't read, but do you have a disciplined writing schedule? Do you spend time? I know now you have. How old is your little one?
He is
I
10
can't
months
remember.
old.
10 months old, so less than a year.
Yeah.
Uh, it's that has obviously impacted your life pretty greatly.
Mhm.
Has it impacted the time that you have for writing?
Uh, Kind of. It's impacted it in ways that are hard to exactly like pin down, because COVID happened like legitimately right on top of me becoming a dad. So it was like my son was born January 22nd, and then it was like the next day there started being like people getting testing positive in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that whole gradual process of things shutting down and me like being quarantined and stuff like that, it just became like I wasn't able to tell if I was not doing stuff because of my kid, or if my life was changing so much because of COVID. But I think in June of this year, I started getting a lot more serious about making stuff, and actually taking the time to like sit down and plan out a video or a sketch or whatever. Before that, I really wasn't a very disciplined writer.
Okay. The Now, if anyone has any questions, you can just type them into the chat. We can bring them onto the screen, like you saw we did earlier. Uh, Now, so you weren't as disciplined, but now you're finding you're being more disciplined when it comes to writing. Do you set aside what is your process? Are you setting aside time, or you carry a notebook and then when you get the chance you can flesh stuff out, or
So my phone is really like the biggest resource for me. I've always kept all of my like joke ideas and script ideas and stuff like that all in my notes section of my phone. So anytime I'm like trying to flesh out a joke, or if I've got an idea for an episode of Playing to the Back, it's something where if I'm feeding him lunch, I'll be sitting there kind of brainstorming stuff. Typically for an episode of Playing to the Back, it's really like a 1 day process that I'll have the idea for like a week or two and just kind of be like, okay, as I'm getting ready to put that episode out, it'll kind of be like, all right, loose outline of ideas, and then I'll sit down at the computer after he goes to bed at 9 o'clock and start actually like writing my script for an episode, and kind of breaking it down into like, all right, here are the important beats that I need to hit, and then actually start filling in the dialogue and what I want to say to the audience. And then once I'm done with that, flip the light on, get my phone put up here on my tripod, and get to shooting. So
that's kind of like been the big secret. That's been the kick in the pants with COVID, was I've had all these ideas and now I get the chance to do it, and that's a secret to anything online right now, is just start. Don't worry about
right.
the equipment. Don't worry about that. As long as you have the content and the passion, you can go for it. And you obviously have that passion for comedy. Now, you didn't name any inspirations, but or many inspirations when you started. Who were the comedians when you first started seeing? Once you saw funny people, once you saw that, I feel so old because you were so young when you saw it. Once you saw that, like, were there stand-ups that you began to recognize at that point?
Up until
Your
then,
mom is stepping in, saying,
really,
she's your inspiration.
oh yeah, I tell her that occasionally. She is pretty funny. I'll give her that. She is pretty funny. She likes to argue that she's the funniest, and I'm like, lady, I've been paid for this. I don't know if you've claimed on your taxes yet being funny, but I have. So there's a little bit of a rivalry there. Now, like before that movie, or before I realized like, oh, I can actually like, write jokes down and start, kind of trying to do stand up. I liked Robin Williams, and Dane Cook was somebody that was really popular at that time in my life. And, being a younger person in middle school, Dane Cook particularly, was interesting to me. But after that movie, I think I started watching a lot more stand up. It was like, let's see. And Robin Williams was the big one. Greg Davis, he's British. He was in the show, The Inbetweeners. Yep. He also hosts the show Taskmaster on Channel 4 BBC. He was a big influence. Like, I feel like, honestly, if I were British and a giant, I would be Greg Davis.
Now, all right, this is the comedy nerd plus the dumb Canadian in me asking this. Have you seen American, a Bill Hicks story?
Yeah. I watched that documentary in high school.
Yeah. Sorry, I worked on the Canadian promo of that.
Really?
There was, yeah. That is okay, but so that whereas you started at 16, he started at 14, and not that far away. And in Canada, we weirdly are kind of, feels like we're stricter with our liquor laws about letting young people in bars, considering that we're so very proud of drinking at a young age here. Mazel Tov Cocktail saying his penis is inflamed and his girlfriend says he should get it checked out, but I think it makes it look bigger. What should you do? I think you're on the wrong show there, Mazel Tov. I definitely would go see a medical doctor at that point in time.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's great that he's close enough to his girlfriend he can show it to her.
Yeah, that's nice that they have that open dialogue where he doesn't feel like he has to show it. Or like,
Mazel tov. This is the wrong show. You missed the Love Doctor show. That was last night. Just so, because there's different shows that appear on this channel, and they're all going to be split up eventually.
Right.
So the Love Doctor gives love, sex, and relationship advice. First one: be thankful that you have a girlfriend who's willing to look at your penis, and then give thoughtful advice.
Right.
Not just.
This is like that old story of the guy, like the guy who wished he had a car, and then the guy who wished he had legs. It's like, be happy you have a girlfriend to show your disease-riddled penis to. Okay.
Yeah. The tale of the Magi, sort of that one. It's the hair in the pocket watch.
Right.
Since we're getting around Christmas, now which of your playing to the back are you most proud of?
I think so. The Jeff Foxworthy episode, that's episode 3, was pretty good. I think like I talked about how comedy is similar to math. That's something like I am a little bit of like an arithmetic nerd. And so I talk about basically equating a joke structure to like 1 + 1 = 2. You know, so you've got your setup is 1 + 1. All your variables that are necessary are in there, and then the punchline is 2. So you have to like, you know, I kind of play around with deconstructing a joke as if it were numbers. You know,
Right. Looking at the math of it now. Are you getting permission to use clips or no?
yes, I am 100%. Yeah, totally.
You swear on the red buttons clown behind you.
Yeah,
There's
he knows.
it's free use because you're using it to dissect. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't ever use more than 30 seconds at a time, so no one ever I never get flagged. So
Okay, that's good. What now? What has there been a different impetus for each one? Because I know there's different topics for each one. But are you doing it mainly to help you galvanize your thoughts and theories on comedy, or are you doing it to educate others?
a little bit of both. I feel like the thing that really got me across, like, kind of over the line to start making that was, you know, I really enjoyed being at a comedy show and sitting outside with other comics while they're smoking and just like talking about comedy theory. That was something that I just really enjoyed doing. And so whenever COVID hit and I stopped going to comedy clubs, that's just a part of my life that ceased. And I found myself talking to myself a lot about comedy and about theory and stuff like that. And so I was like, you know, I kind of got over the imposter syndrome of feeling like, you know, my thoughts aren't really that important. Like, I'm not a headliner. I'm not famous at comedy. But once I got over the imposter syndrome, it's like, I have insights that I think that people could benefit from, and people could be interested in, even if you're not somewhat interested in doing stand-up comedy yourself. Even if you're just interested in like, yeah, I really like Jeff Foxworthy. I'd like to know how he does that. Or, you know, I'd like to see some of the stuff that goes on within their brain trying to manipulate me and make me laugh.
Now, okay, Dallas is, I would say, one of the 5 big U.S. comedy cities. Would you agree to that, or?
Yes, I would. I've been to a couple of smaller markets, you know, Oklahoma City, Wichita, Kansas, Kansas City, LA. And I think Dallas's comedy scene holds
LA
up.
is a smaller market. Okay.
No, okay, no, I didn't mean to include that in the smaller markets, but that's one of the other cities that I have done a show in. No, I think that Dallas definitely holds up. It's pretty corporate as far as like it's not going to be really like alternative. I feel like a lot of the comedy here is very much reflective of the environment that it's in. So you find a lot of Midwestern cities like Oklahoma City are very kind of quiet and self-deprecating because that's just the area they're in. Whereas Dallas is definitely a business hub and a place where there's a lot of large brands and large companies here. So I feel like that kind of bleeds into the comedy voice, the collective voice of the city.
Do you do you feel more comfortable in Dallas, or do you like going to play a place that is a little more freeing, like Austin?
Uh, that's a tough one. I think it definitely depends on the city. I don't think I've ever actually done a show in Austin.
Oh,
I've done shows in like Waco and San Antonio and Houston. I don't think I've ever actually done something in Austin. I just never made the point to book anything down there. But as far as like doing comedy in other cities, there are certain places that, like I said, that the temperament is right for a certain style,
yeah.
and other places where it might not necessarily be. So, I think like Wichita, Kansas might be a little tougher for me, whereas
Mm.
San Antonio is a pretty good comedy town for me. So just
I
depends.
I like to describe the bigger marketplaces of having a flavor. So
Mhm.
like there's always sort of like the hometown hero, and because they're always kind of killing it in their hometown, the audience begins to sort of expect that style of comedy. So the younger comics coming up are being rewarded for doing a similar style.
Mhm.
And so the entire community sort of has a certain flavor to their comedy is the way
Yeah.
I kind of explain it. And so when those people travel outside of their market for the first time, they begin to have to learn how to adapt. Now, funny's funny; it's gonna work. It just
Right.
sometimes takes a little bit of tweaking. Um,
Definitely.
and that's something you established, you've experienced, you've like had to tweak when you were playing these other markets.
Yeah, a little bit. I think that there's a little bit of a different flavor, like within just the DFW Metroplex.
Mm.
Um, so they're very much also being like a young comedian having to like feel out a room and figure out like I don't know if this type of room is going to be ready for this material, or I'll play it a little bit safer here. So I got a little bit more used to adapting what I was saying pretty young. So whenever I like started going to other places and started traveling, it became a lot easier to tap into like, okay, what is it that they want, or what is it they're used to, and then kind of trying to play around with that.
Which is definitely a skill a touring comic needs to have. Now, you mentioned you're a bit of a math nerd. Uh, did you go to university? Did you take math or did you take arts? Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that your high school had a black box theater. Like my high school had a shop, uh, like
Oh
a
yeah.
metal shop and a wood shop. That was it. Did you go to more of an artsy high school or?
Yeah, I definitely went to more of an artsy high school. I'm from Denton, Texas, which is the tip. There's like, the triangle is what they call it, the Golden Triangle. There's Dallas, Fort Worth, and then at the top there's Denton, which is where I'm from. They have three high schools. Two of them are known for sport, and ours is known for our marching band. So that's where I went to school. We had a really great like academic. We were an IB World School, which is there's like this kind of, I don't know, governing body called IB that says like here's the international standard for a great education, basically. So that's something that my school provided, but definitely a lot of art stuff there. Like our choir, our band, and our theater department were all like the best in the area. So yeah, we had a great theater department, a black box theater. We had our own shop for the theater department right next to our black box theater. But whenever I went to college, I went to college for video technology.
Mhm.
Because I started like kind of getting interested in. I've always been interested in movies. So the idea of like kind of like a complementary skill to being a comedian was making movies and writing and stuff.
Editing, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I sort of personally I fell into movies because it pays better than comedy in Canada.
Mm,
That was sort of my attraction in there.
right.
Um, the so have you were you are you using those skills when you're making up, because you're making up short videos as well? I didn't see a lot of collaborations with others on your YouTube channel, because mainly it seemed to be you solo. Do you have like core comedy friends that you work with, or?
Um, I definitely do. And if COVID wasn't happening, I really do enjoy collaboration. it is a little bit more difficult to collaborate because you've got to worry about other people and their schedules and their work ethics and stuff like that. Whereas if you're doing stuff on your own, it's just whenever I have the time, and I don't have to worry about checking in with anybody else's like comedic preferences or they don't want to do something. I think with my sketches, which I feel like has been like the main creative output that I've had during COVID, has been like, I kind of looked at myself and was just like, I have these funny ideas. I can't just sit around and wait for this to be over to like be able to start putting these ideas onto video and doing it with other people. So I just kind of made it a point like, all right, I'm going to play all the characters in these sketches and just, have a good time, put on a lady's hat to make me look like a lady. And there you go. So that was definitely the catalyst for me doing that kind of style of sketch.
And you now looking forward, because the vaccine is going out, it's going to be a while before everyone gets vaccinated, obviously. But do you think you're going to continue producing the online content?
Yeah.
You said sort of like the impetus was to kind of fill a little bit of time why you weren't getting on stage.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's definitely been a great benefit. And that's where I think I am a little bit grateful for this time in the world, as much as it sucks, is that, it forced me to get over like the feelings of like, I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy of people's time in a day, and just go and do it and, find those people that enjoy the kind of humor that I'm going to bring. So coming out of COVID, I think I'm going to, start getting back on stage a lot more, but also I feel like this time has definitely been a good eye-opening experience to be like, oh, okay, so people actually do want to see me be silly in my study and pretend to be a snobby rich lady with memory loss, So.
Or I was about to say a Southern lawyer, but I guess for you that's just a lawyer.
Just a lawyer.
Just a lawyer.
Yep.
There is. I was talking with a comedian from Chicago just a couple days ago, and they were mentioning how because Dallas is still open. I know that you mentioned your partner is a health professional, that they are, and you're being very cautious, especially with a young baby in the house.
Yeah.
But they were mentioning that they had lost, easily a third to half of their friends to Texas, specifically Dallas, just because of the fact that that is a place people can go and get paid stage time in front of live audiences, which they can't get in Chicago currently.
Yeah.
Have you noticed it of influx, or are you?
Not necessarily. Because I haven't really been ingratiated in the scene anymore. I'm still obviously Facebook friends with everybody, and I see everyone's posts. Hey, I'm at this club this weekend. I do see a few more new names on those flyers than normal. But I kind of chalked that up to, well, I just haven't been around, and these people are just new comics that I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet.
So you took that as new people starting rather than an influx.
Yeah. It didn't seem like people were like migrating here because of the opportunity for stage time.
Okay. Now, one of the things, and again, just a reminder for those who are watching, just hit the like button if you want to help us promote the channel so we get a greater reach. And if you're watching this on replay, still hit the like button, hit subscribe, because I'm going to be trying to do at least 2 of these a week for till lockdown ends. But your country, if you forgive me for asking this kind of stuff, has gone through a lot of things in the past year, if not 4 years, but specifically the last year.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously, you've been believing in science when it comes to COVID,
Right.
Which makes me feel much more comfortable.
Mhm.
I don't think I've asked if you own a gun yet, which is the typical Canadian question to ask Americans.
Texans specifically, yeah.
Texas specifically. Like personally, I have like a firearm safety permit. I've got that, but I no longer own any guns because I no longer go hunting.
Hmm.
That's kind of the purpose of them.
Yeah.
But
So I don't own a firearm. It's something that as I've had a family, it's something that I've started to consider more, just because the prospect of economic collapse or just whatever could happen with COVID, particularly earlier on, whenever it was like, what's going to happen here? The concern was like, if something happens, we're just kind of up to God's mercy, really. So that's something I've considered. I don't, I haven't taken any steps to get one or anything, but no, I am, I'm a pretty liberal person. I would say I was not at all happy whenever Donald Trump was elected. He's a challenging guy. As far as like my thoughts on it, I have millions. It's hard to really encapsulate all of that in one little word.
have you ever brought any of that to the stage? Like, do you feel that there would be a certain danger to do that in Texas?
It depends on that's
On the room.
another thing where it depends on the room for sure. Like there's these comedy clubs called Hyenas. There are 3 in the Metroplex. There were 3 whenever COVID happened. They're basically the 2 main ones are Fort Worth and Dallas. And the Dallas one is a lot more like city slicker, liberal people. And the Fort Worth one is definitely a lot more cowtown folks. So you kind of, that difference in the audience whenever you walk in, you go, okay, there's a few too many cowboy hats in here for that kind of stuff. But really, I feel like I do have opinions on politics that are interesting, and sometimes I'll have a thought, and I'm like, oh, that was a little goofy. That was something that might make people think. But anytime I've tried to do anything political on stage, it has always failed, and it's one of those things where I may not flesh it out enough, and I may be a little bit more eager to like scrap it because I'm just like, yeah, whatever. That's not something that people want. But I really feel like, definitely my youth and like my age, even on stage, I don't give off an air of like wisdom.
You are young, but you also look even younger than you are. So
Yeah.
And the haircut is it's helped that. I don't know if it's helped or hindered that. I don't think it's really changed.
Yeah, whenever it was shorter and it's like a fade, I look like a businessman. Like I look pretty good. But yeah, whenever I had like the long hair, I looked like a child. I had this bit where I was like, I have both a baby face and a dad bod, which is just the weirdest combination. Like from the neck down, my body's like, hey kids, have fun at the swimming park. And then my head's like, fuck you, dad. It's called a water park. You're embarrassing me. But no, that's definitely something that, as far as talking about politics is concerned, I've definitely felt like audiences rarely are interested in my opinion on that kind of stuff. So
Muzztoff is laughing along with you. How would you describe your? Well, no, let's. We sort of skimmed over it, but the other stuff that has happened this year, like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the Black Lives Matter movement, the stuff that's still happening with the election.
yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? And do you think there's going to be any bleed through into comedy clubs with this divisiveness? Or
I think that coming around the bend, there's going to be a very palpable sigh of relief within performing arts as a whole, especially comedy. I think that for the most part, there's going to be a little bit less of an expectation from people that's what they're going to go to a comedy club and hear about. So if you're somebody that's more right leaning and you don't want to like be talked down to or whatever like that at a comedy club, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable going there. And it's also going to bleed through. And like, I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity for just creative and interesting thought that is just kind of suppressed whenever you are in a country as divided as we are.
right.
Yeah.
But there's still comedians out there who who are more on the right side of the spectrum, who are still have followings that are still going to be out there and touring, like Nick
Yeah.
DiPaolo, for example. Um, are you thinking that they're either going to have to tone down, or are you going to see basically like two comedy clubs in the same town, one being more serving more to the right, one serving to the left? Because that's not really a great economic model.
No, no. I don't think that's going to be the case. I, you know, as much as those people do have a following for being having a certain political leaning right now, I think that that's going to gradually die out. I don't think it's going to go away. I think those people are going to still have the same beliefs they do, and I think they're going to be the audience at large that they appeal to is still going to be appealed to. Um, but I think it's going to become less of everyone's identity. I feel like right now there's so much of like I'm on this side of it and that's who I am, or I'm on this side of it and that's who I am. Um, and so whenever we come out of this, I think I'm very hopeful that that's gonna gradually cease.
Seeing that some new people are coming into the room, but Mazel Tov Cocktail, which is a great name, Mazel Tov Cocktail, is
Yeah.
definitely agreeing with you. Jerry Hodges is saying, "Hey Ashman." Jerry is a comedian and producer in Ottawa, Canada. Welcome, Jerry.
Hey,
And
Jerry.
of course, your mom is there. She hears some comedians talk about censorship more, and it's a fine line that some recognize and some play the line. Which I don't know how you feel about it. For me, but there's a lot of people who say that they're expounding on free speech, but then they don't want you to tell them they're an idiot when they're an idiot, so they
Right.
want to kind of shut down your free speech, um, which is
Yeah.
it's they're
In my
they
opinion,
want they want speech free of consequences is what they want.
right. In my opinion, it's like comedy is the only art form that is completely reliant on the audience. And if you're saying stuff that's going to alienate people, don't be upset that they're alienated. Um,
Yeah.
and that's another thing with like comics that toe the line or that they make it a point to like, I am this political leaning and that's who I am on stage. Like that's on you. If that's what you're going to do, then you got to be ready for those consequences.
That's their choice, and that's the market they're courting. Jim Madrino's though, he's the guy that wrote the Idiot's Guide to Stand Up. He said stand up comedy is the only art form designed to sell beer. So it does come down to a little bit of market forces.
Country music. Country music is definitely it's that and trucks. So they're
is
diversified.
country music an art form?
Yeah.
Especially modern country. Sorry, oh, man, I'm talking to somebody in Texas. I don't want to get
Yeah.
into like
My audience is gonna hate you, Paul. I'm just gonna let you know.
just
My audience, you're not getting any new fans out of this show.
oh, damn it. Your mom likes me.
Does
So
she?
how would well she keeps commenting.
Hey, she's
Uh,
single.
woohoo. Probably the same age, actually. There is.
Probably.
I might be older. Sorry, I'm just an old man.
Yeah, my mom
Uh,
had me really young too. She had me at 17.
okay, I was
So
born in the '60s, so that kind of.
you're 10 years older than my mom.
There we go. Here I am, cradle robber. There is. So I can be the funniest one in the family. How would you describe your comedy style?
Uh, I'd say party stories. Like,
Parties. So
yeah, my style on stage, you know, so the other day I was driving down the road and I saw this thing. Stories that if I were in a group conversation with two or three other people at a party, that they could enjoy. And so anytime I'm like on stage, I try to deliver material like I'm just talking to a friend in a casual situation.
So more of a conversational style,
Yeah.
storyteller, but you still make sure to pepper it with a statement, punchline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Definitely.
yeah, which is helps keep attention. Um, now, what do you say that you use your phone? And I didn't get into the specifics. Now, your mom is saying he makes fun of himself a lot, and I'm going to come back to that a little bit, but. how do you use your phone? Do you just type out? Are you typing out with your thumbs? Or are you using voice recorder? Or
Uh, so it depends. I mean, like there was a couple instances where I'll be driving down the road and the thoughts are just like flying at me. I had an idea for a joke that was about like a list of casualties at the bottom of a mountain, and I just started like really going nuts. I'm like, the sign basically said like, this many people were naturally selected by this mountain, you know. And so I just like all these thoughts for punchlines and tags and stuff like that were coming out of me. So I use my voice recorder, but for the most part, it's just typing out ideas into my phone. I do use my voice recorder for actual like sets so that I can listen back, that kind of thing. And then, I mean, like with my videos, I edit on iMovie on my phone. So really like everything that I need to do, I can just do on my phone. I don't need my
do you
computer.
want to say what type of phone you use right now?
iPhone 5S.
5S. So you see, like that's not. They're on what, 12 now, 11?
Yeah,
So
it's not
so
very new.
even the older tech still works, still can help get people online. So that's for people who are curious about what it takes. You don't need all the newest gear to start
No.
doing it. This StreamYard, which I'm using here, is there's a free version, and so people can even do these kind of talk shows with like a free YouTube channel and a free app that allows us to do it. If anyone
Right.
wants to try this, I'm just going to say though, shoot me a private message. I will send you a code, which would get you a discount if you decide to buy. But if you try it for free before getting my code, then you don't get the discount when you buy. But if you do buy, then I get to do this a little longer without paying any more. That's kind of yay. Just
Let me just take a moment and do a quick product plug real quick.
product plug. This is a non-sponsored channel, so it's technically it's not really a product plug. Now, your mom your mom actually she brought in the thing that you make fun of yourself a lot.
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to ask you about your thoughts on this, or maybe I should. Hannah Gadsby's Nanette. Did you watch that in its entirety?
Not in its entirety. I heard about it. I checked it out. It wasn't, something I was super interested in, but at the same time, it's something where I'm like, yeah, like this is still comedy. It's a lot more like spaced out, and it's not like punch, 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 punch. But I'd say it's closer to like Mike Birbiglia. Like Mike Birbiglia doesn't have super punched up shows. He has a lot of silence in his act.
Which is I mean, when you're doing a longer set, it's nice to take that ride to be able.
Right.
If you have like 2,000 people in a room and you get them like all dead silent,
Right.
that's a feeling of power. That's almost better than like feeling the thunderous applause.
Right. That
To
level
get
of
that
engagement. Yeah.
exactly. But there's something that she said during that. I considered it more of a one person show than a straight stand up special, because it was part of a fringe festival. It wasn't part of a stand up festival. Uh,
Mhm.
but one of the things that she discussed was the fact that self deprecating humor is self fulfilling, in the fact that it's sort of reharming yourself. It's reinforcing these negative thoughts about yourself, and it's hard to sort of break out of that. And she's also a storyteller, and she's able to sort of edit what happened in her life by telling a cleaner version or a sanitized version of the actual history.
Yeah.
Like she had a joke early on about this guy thinking she was hitting on his girlfriend, and when she was, but he said, "Oh, you're a girl, so that's okay." Uh, and then later on, she reveals that then he kind of clued in about 5 minutes
Mhm.
later, and went over and broke some of her ribs and dislocated her shoulder and broke her jaw. But that part doesn't make it into the joke,
Yeah.
so she could tell the sanitized version.
Right.
So do you feel that way about the self-deprecating humor? And I'm asking Melissa as well, cutie. I'm gonna ask you if you feel that if you worry about that portion, if he's too down on himself while he's doing comedy, even though he's getting such a high out of the performance, and you're getting the high out of the performance. I'm asking this to you and your mom at the same time, so my pronouns are getting fucked up. But
Okay.
it's by the way, you can swear on this if you need to. This has not come up yet, but
Right. Yeah, I was worried
yeah,
about that a little bit.
yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think the way that I use self-deprecation isn't so much about like, oh, feel sorry for me, or I don't feel like I use it to stand on its own necessarily. Um, the only instances of self-deprecation I have are typically at the top of the show, because they're more things that like I want to just kind of break down any expectation or any like foregone conclusion that you have about like who I am based on first impressions. So like, the whole thing about me having a baby face and a dad bod, that's something that people will initially kind of make that observation, not necessarily click for them that's why they might be a little bit like, oh, I don't know about this person. I also used to talk about like whenever I had long hair from that picture that I sent you, I would have to address that because I'm the guy with the long hair, yeah, there you go. That's me with long hair. So I used to, do a bit where I'd turn around and I'd go, see, with this hairstyle, I look like just the most unfortunately built woman. And I'd go into a bit about talking about my hair. And it wasn't so much about like, oh, I feel negatively about my body image or negatively about my hairstyle or like it's like it makes me feminine. It was more of like okay, let's get this all just nipped in the bud, taken care of. That way we can move on to like more personal stuff.
And it's also generally a tool in the toolbox of the likable comic, is to
Right.
go out there and denigrate themselves a little bit, so they're less threatening to the audience, and it's more easy to get sort of like the sympathy and to get people a little bit on board.
Right.
So it's a good tool to use. Your mom says that she thinks that you use comedy to work out your feelings, like being from a young separated parents. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's true-ish. I feel like, there are things that I talk, my one of my favorite jokes is about a true experience whenever I was a kid. Anytime that somebody would die in my family, my parents not being in the same house, we would have to like meet somewhere together. Yeah, meet for Brahms. And so that kind of developed like a negative thing for me and Brahms. Like it made me start feeling like, oh, anytime I go, eat ice cream, somebody's going to die. So I feel like that was definitely a real thing. That was like a consequence, if you will, of like my parents not being together. But the consequences of them having been together are not ones that well, yeah. But no, if they stayed together, I think I would not be nearly as funny. I think I'd be a lot more Hitlery or something.
Your mother also mentions that you use laughter as medicine. It really is the best, unless you have diabetes. Diabetes, I
Yeah.
go with the insulin. Just
Right.
there's just easy low hanging fruit. Now, how young were you when your parents separated?
I don't remember a time where my parents were together. Like
Okay.
they were, I think my mom had me, my dad went off to college, he met another girl, and then that was that. We're like, my dad's still in my life, my mom's still in my life, obviously. So it's not
Or she's
like,
stalking you here.
yeah,
Should I block her?
Mom?
Blink twice if I have to block. Uh,
No, yeah. I feel like Paul wants to be your dad. Ugh. We both have kind of curly hair, so hey.
yeah. Oh, you should see the old pictures. It's getting real in here. Yeah, Mazel Tov. I never shy away from the real.
Leave it to
Uh,
Mazel Tov Cocktail
yeah.
to point out the elephant in the room. No, yeah. I feel like comedy was, I wouldn't say necessarily an escape from that. It was more of like, that's a way that I felt from an early age that like was my way of making friends with people and connecting with people. And then whenever I realized, that I had a desire to, make people laugh, in large groups, and my goal for life is to make as many people laugh as I can. That's basically when it became like, okay, I need to do this thing like commercially now.
Yeah. So what are your what's your goals for post COVID? What is your action plan once things kind of level out enough?
Goals for post COVID, it's definitely just getting back on stage. Just getting back in front of live audiences is going to be great. Getting used to being on stage again. And then later this year, the plan is to move to Chicago once COVID is taken care of. Hopefully by then, is move to Chicago and go to Second City. Are you familiar with Second City?
Oh yeah, Second City. There's also one
Toronto.
in Toronto, and
Yeah.
it filmed in Winnipeg, but it was the SCTV, Second City Television, the TV
Yeah.
series was Canadian.
Nice. I didn't know that. So yeah, that's the plan for like kind of immediate future, is to kind of get back on stage, get back into stand up, try to keep the online content coming. I feel like there is definitely a stigma amongst kind of stand up cliques that, Instagram comedians or Facebook comedians, they're not like the same. They're not equal to stand up comics, which I would say I formerly kind of felt that way. And once I got past that, it's turned out to be like a really great thing for me, and a really nice little creative outlet. Because since COVID, Facebook has been my comedy club. Facebook has been where I have gotten to make people laugh. So I've just been trying to use that to its fullest, really. So.
I was also trying to find a stage pick with the long hair, and I'm just
Just scrolling through my Facebook now.
no, not yours. I just to show you the curly hair.
Oh,
I found
yours.
myself from Assassin's Creed. So I'm in Assassin's Creed 2.
You're in Assassin's Creed?
Yeah,
Wow.
not the films, the show, the video games. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah,
That picture right there looks like a comic I know, Miles Francis. I doubt he's watching, but I'll tag him in this and be like, yo, Miles. Anyway, you might be his dad.
So okay, so that's your 5-year plan. You're talking about going to Chicago,
Mm.
and what do you think is going to be happening in comedy in general in the future? Mazel Tov is kind of surprised. Sorry about the Assassin's Creed. Yeah, it was a long time ago. That was like 2. What are they on now?
They're Valhalla. I know they're Vikings now.
Yeah.
I don't know what iteration of the franchise it is though. I think my hopes. I kind of went into this a little bit. Just the collective sigh of relief of like being in kind of like post-Trump, kind of hopefully starting to come back together a little bit. I do think,
country.
yeah, I do think that there is definitely going to be like a performing arts boom. I don't think it's going to be strictly to comedy. Once people can just like get out and go do stuff, I think that the pent up emotions and creativity that COVID has caused is going to explode. Like that's something that I am very, very hopeful for, is just like live performance coming back and really seeing I'd say like a 90s-esque kind of stand-up boom, a renaissance of theater and music and, TV. I don't know.
Yeah, there was damn, this is my memory's going. I'm that old. Uh, so sorry to your mom. But the idea of that boom is a great it's a great hope, but I always found that there's always seems to be more of an arts boom in strife, not post strife, like historically.
Yeah. I think that level of, I think that this strife is so short. Like, I definitely think that we're experiencing, a larger amount of like online content, and people are doing more podcasts and stuff. But I think that the lack of our ability to be together in the same room, working together, is the thing that's been really like holding that back. I definitely am very much an optimist. Like I do see the best in the world, which I feel like clashes with stand-up comedy as an art form.
I'm too happy to be a comedian.
Yeah, no, that's been a thing for, I don't know. I feel like whenever I'm doing comedy regularly, it definitely it brings me down a peg. But no, I think that, with how short this has been, and with the lack of being able to like actually be in the same room as people, I think there's been a lot of individual creativity that's been great to see. Seeing people like do streams of them just playing music in their living room, or like I said, me doing sketches. That's been a lot of fun, and I think that coming out of this, I have a lot of hope that energy is going to kind of snowball into more like collaboration and into more kind of interpersonal performance.
And I remembered the thought that I had, because you talked about sort of like the traditional comedians, stage comedians, sort of the way they look down on the Facebook or Instagram or podcast comics.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think part of that, because I was one of those people that you look down and this person has zero stage skills, but they have a following from that, and then they can come in and they get offered a lot more time.
Yeah.
In your market, and you feel like they don't know how to do comedy. Yeah, but they're selling the beer, and
Right.
there's sort of that against it. Now, I'm like, if you were to list, give a list of skills that a comedian needs to have. I want to hear what your list is, and then I will tell you the list that I tell people, and the one that's the most controversial. So we're going to do a countdown list of right. Jordan's going to tell me what are the essential skills of a stand-up comic, and I'm going to also list off what mine are, and we'll see what crossovers we have and what differences.
Okay. I feel like skepticism I would say is a pretty common trait amongst comedians, to be able to look at the world around
this
you.
List. Okay.
Yeah, no. I'm very skeptical of you asking me that question. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna, if I have like, I was worried about naming a specific number too. I was like, do I do 5? And I'm like, I don't know if I can actually name 5 things. Now, skepticism is one. You have to be able to compartmentalize. I want to say thick skin. I feel like that's the easy answer. Is like, you got to be tough. Comedy is hard, and it can be very brutal on you, on your psyche. Like I said, it's the only art form where the audience is the most important thing. And like, if you don't get a reaction from the audience, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you're failing, that feedback is right on you, and you can't escape it. And so whenever that's happening, it can feel really, really, really hard to keep going. And it can make you really like feel like there's not more space for you to grow. But I think the ability to take that feeling, put it over here, and then be able to look at that with an honest, microscope and go, okay, how can I make this better? How can I get better at this? That's the most important thing. So I think feeling that, I'm not good enough, or I need to get better, is a really crucial thing. So compartmentalizing is definitely a big one. And then life experience, I think, is like probably the biggest thing.
Says the person who started at the age of 16.
Right. And I think I had a fucking hard time. And that's why, I don't really feel like I started really doing comedy until I started going to therapy. Like whenever I started going to therapy, I was like, oh shit, this is what it's all about. No, like life experience is a big thing. Cause starting young, I didn't have enough of the prerequisite life experience. I didn't know who I was as a person. And now I still don't really know who I am on stage, whereas if somebody starts later on in their life, older comics starting for the first time, they oftentimes find their way a lot quicker because they already know who they are. So yeah, life experience. If your whole life is just doing open mics and doing shows, like the burnout is so intense because you're not living any other life. And so all your experiences are just going to be comedy clubs and dive bars and hangs.
Jokes about hotels and airplane rides. Yeah.
Right. You're going to lose touch. So I think keeping that life experience, doing things that fulfill you and make you feel good, and making sure you have time to experience life outside of comedy is definitely a big part of prolonged success in comedy.
Mazel Tov is jumping in to say that he went on stage to do comedy just once, and he was drunk, and he told a joke, and no one laughed, and it crushed his soul. And that's the risk that you take when you go on stage.
Yep.
Is that the end of your list, or do you have anything to
Yeah,
add?
yeah. I'd say those are my top three.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep it as succinct as possible. Mazel saying he's too sensitive for comedy. Um, First off, it's writing. It's the ability to write. Not just the ability to write, the ability to edit. So take those thoughts so you can edit them into a structure that is most palatable for the crowd.
Yeah.
I'm going to say presence, which is a combination of sort of like persona and knowing who you are on stage and being able to express that in a way that the audience can read. So presence is there. I'm going to say stagecraft as well, which is the thing that the those people who come up through Instagram or YouTube, those YouTube comedians, they don't have because they're not used to being on a stage. They don't know how to like take the mic out of the stand and put the mic behind you because you don't want that barrier between the audience. Like what to do if the cord comes out. That's basic stagecraft.
Right.
And the fourth one is promotion, self promotion. And this is the one that other comedians will argue with me about because they don't kind of understand. They think they're thinking about the fun parts of the art, the more artistic parts of the art, which are great.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing self promotion, if you're not driving butts into seats into the venues that you're in, then people don't want you on their shows, and you're going to have less and less opportunities. And that's where those YouTube comedians come in. Is they are packing the place, which gives them more opportunity at stage time, which gives them an opportunity to get better very quickly.
Right.
It's only when their reach for stage outstrips their talent. Like if you got there was an incident in Montreal 2 years ago, I think it was, at the Montreal Festival. An American YouTube comic got on to the New Faces show, and he was just offensive, and he got booed off the stage, and then he complained. I think he said the N words to one of the other performers, and the thing is, the person should not have said yes to that show,
Right.
because they were not ready. They should have been playing smaller rooms, using their
Right.
audiences to pack those rooms so they could get lots and lots of shows to get better to be in a venue like that.
Yeah. I think the challenge with those kind of things, especially like people with followings that go into stand up, is I think that that's almost like a crux to the development of you as an actual like performer and comedian. Like if you're packing every room with support, then you're not going to get honest feedback. It's like if I'm doing all these paintings and I'm only showing my family or people that have a reason to lie to me, then I'm not really gonna. Or if they just have like a preconceived like, hey, I like this person, so that makes a show just easier to do. Obviously I understand like the packing a room and selling beer. That's definitely a big part of
That keeps
those
promoters happy. That keeps club owners happy. There was here in Montreal. There was a person who was a club promoter who got into comedy, and their first time on stage, they packed an open mic. They packed the open mic, which was never ever packed. They were turning away people to the open mic that night. So the owner invited him on the weekend, but he had enough self realization after that weekend to go, I don't think I'm ready for weekends. And so they used their skills as a club promoter to make sure that anytime they were on the open mic section, there was a good crowd, but not overwhelming, and thus when
Right.
they felt like they were ready, and now that person tours internationally. So
Yeah, it's good they had that self-realization.
yeah, it most definitely good. And now my green card mother wanted to put in green card wife, my green card wife. She was saying, Jordan, you booking the theater as a teenager was a great lesson in self promotion. Was it a hard lesson or just
Yes.
yes?
Yeah.
How did you do with the ticket sales?
Uh,
Was this the first time you produced a show? Was
yeah,
to
it
there?
was.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was kind of the second iteration of the whole lady at getting heckled by the boss of the bar story. Now I booked a small theater in my hometown and sold tickets to this show, and I felt pretty good about like, okay, the marketing of it was like I was under 18 and I was doing this hour, and so I had like marketed as the name was adult content, so Jordan Black adult content, and like got some stories in the paper about me and stuff. I definitely feel like at that time the internet wasn't like, I don't know, social media wasn't as big of a device for selling tickets at that point for just like random people, obviously like the big stars like Van Halen could put on their Facebook page, hey, we're doing a show in Dallas, and that would sell their tickets, but for me, it was like, oh, I was messaging people all the time about like, hey, you should come see my show, So I sold like, I got like 20 people, 22 people to come to the show.
What was the size of the theater?
Like it was like 70 seats. So
Okay.
not well, it was definitely a learning experience. The show didn't go very well. I did my time, and it was definitely, it was humbling. Like it was one of those things where I had to kind of go, okay, maybe I'm not ready for that. And you kind of learn about the steps that, okay, you don't just jump straight to headliner. You gotta figure out how to actually make that time good rather than just to fill the time.
Now, in Canada, we have a kind of a structured thing with how it's done. And one of the things I hear about like the southern U.S., and I don't know if Texas would be included in this, but like Arizona, New Mexico,
Yeah.
it's usually the least experienced person is going to host on a show.
Yeah.
Okay. See, in Canada, mainly probably because of the influence of like the Yuck Yucks comedy chain, it's the usual progression is you go from opener to middle to host to headliner, and because so much of the show depends on that like that opening bit from the host, that the host has to be somebody who's going to be engaging to bring the audience in. Is
Right.
kind of the theory of that. What 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 do you think of the pros and cons of the two different methods?
I think that the method of like having an opener and a host be separate roles, that's definitely a good method. I think
I
it's
mean, sometimes it's just three acts, so it's like the host, the middle, and the close. But it's usually the least experience of those three would be the middle.
so. And you're saying the MC spot would like the first would go for 15 minutes and then the middle would still go for 25 like a feature, or would it be like the feature time is up front for 25 minutes and then the middle spot is like
It's usually like
10?
12 to 15 off the top, enough to engage the audience, bring them in, have the middle do their 20, and then have the MC go back to do another 10 before bringing up the feature for like 45 to an hour.
Yeah, I think that's a good format. I think that, at the stage, like, in Dallas, if you want to work for a club like Hyenas, they actually like have you go to a class if they're like wanting you to be an MC for them. They have you go to a class and you learn about being an MC and what's required of you and kind of some of the steps that you need to hit during a show. So it's not so much like you're a brand new comic, But I definitely like that, having that 10 to 12 at the front, and then the host, the middle act goes up and does another 15, and then the host comes back and does another 10. That's a pretty good format. Like, I think as far as making it about guaranteed success at the top, okay, we'll give this newer guy a shot. Then we're going to come back with some more guaranteed success before the headliner. That's a good way to do that.
It's like bookending when you're putting new jokes into a set. You always sort of bookend them with solid joke before, solid joke afterwards.
Right.
It's kind of the same
Definitely.
theory. Now, are you aware? Because you mentioned that you watch a number of like the British panel shows. Are you aware of how the British clubs allot shows?
No.
A feature is about 25 minutes, and they have an intermission in the beginning in the middle of the show. So it's usually the host comes out, and then a middle, and then intermission. Then the host is back out for a shorter time, and then the feature goes on. So
Okay.
it's part of
That's
that is to
interesting.
maximize drink sales.
Yeah, no, I
Uh,
was thinking, the first thing that popped in my mind was that's going to be a drunk audience for sure.
yeah, it's bathroom breaks and drink sales, so people aren't getting up during the
Yeah.
performances.
Yeah, I can see the advantages of that for, a business standpoint and also from a performance standpoint, minimizing people getting up in the middle of a show. And I think like the thing that made me think like, ugh, was the idea of having an intermission and then bringing the headliner up afterward.
Bringing them back. I think part of that is the fact that they have more of a theater culture than
Right.
we have in North America, and
Sure.
they were later in getting into stand up than we were here.
Yeah.
So it's sort of an adaptation that they did, and also the shorter time periods, because when stand up hit there, they wanted to feel it as quickly as possible. So when people were doing shorter sets, they were of course funnier because they got to the funny quicker.
Right.
Did you have fun with this conversation, Jordan?
No, it was terrible. You hit on my mom. That was not great. Mazel tov cocktail needs to go to a doctor. No, it was a good time. I definitely, it's nice to get out there for the international audience.
Yeah, well, Mazel Tov stuck around for the entire thing. They had fun. Thank you, Mazel Tov. Anyone who's watching, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and thank you very much. It's J Black Comedy on Instagram and Facebook is the way to find him. Check out his videos, Playing to the Back, if you're interested in comedy writing. I'm Paul Ash. My guest has been Jordan Black from Dallas, Texas. Have a wonderful time, and Melissa, call me.